Throughout Elden Ring and the journey to understand the story behind it, we tend to find that the elements shrouded in the most mystery are the ones that sit right in front of our faces the whole time. We recently made a video breaking down the mysteries hidden within the Erd Tree, and today we have a similar question to dive into. The Roundtable Hold is the central nexus that we'll visit numerous times throughout our journey in the lands between. It's one of the most iconic and recognizable places in all of Elden Ring, and perhaps that's what makes us think we understand it, but in actuality, it's a location that actually doesn't make much sense at all, and one that you probably never even thought to question. So today I want to take an investigative look at the Roundtable Hold and show you why you should not only question it, but also use it to understand some of the greater principles in the world of Elden Ring that don't get explained. But as we get into that today, let me give you one final reminder about our channel partner for the month of June. Let me give a big shout out to the partner of today's video, BenQ and Mobiuz, for hooking me up with their new EX480UZ, and I gotta say this is the most advanced monitor I've ever played on. With a 48-inch 4K OLED screen, it takes the immersion to the next level, and 120Hz with FreeSync Premium guarantees a smooth experience while you're gaming. And their exclusive HDRI technology and light tuner allows you to adjust the picture however you like. And with other awesome features like dual input and screen adjustment, these are by far the best monitors on the market. So a big thank you to them for partnering with the channel, and now back to the video. As we normally do when discussing the weirder parts of Elden Ring's lore, let's begin by covering the observable facts about the Roundtable Hold. Our first introduction to the concept of Roundtable Hold comes immediately after starting the game, and we're told by White Mask Vare our state of affairs.
Oh yes, tarnished are we? Come to the lands between for the Elden Ring? Of course you have. No shame in it. Unfortunately for you, however, you are maidenless, without guidance, without the strength of runes, and without an invitation to the Roundtable Hold. You are fated, it seems, to die in obscurity.
We then receive our invitation to the Roundtable Hold after either killing Margit or journeying beyond the bounds of Limgrave. And that invitation comes from Melina, who tells us that she can take us there, and that it's the gathering place of chosen tarnished, champions guided by grace. And upon arrival, we get our first look at the layout of this place. The first thing that'll catch our eye is consecrated in the center of the round table itself, a massive manifestation of grace protruding from a collection of many weapons covered in vines. Surrounding the room are many statues representing the Erd Tree and the Golden Order. But as we explore the location, we'll find many offshooting rooms set aside for those chosen tarnished champions. Rooms of different purposes such as a library, a bedroom, and even a kitchen and dining hall. It's clear that one's stay at the Roundtable Hold isn't just in passing. As for the occupants of the Roundtable Hold, we can find many of the same chosen tarnished seen revived in the intro cinematic, all of them except for Hoarah and the Radiant Gold Mask. There are other esteemed guests of the Round Table, other tarnished guided by grace who received a summons, but it's never explicitly stated how they arrived. Stranger though are the non-tarnished occupants of the Round Table. Hugh is a blacksmith, a misbegotten who's currently a prisoner in the Round Table, and we'll discuss him more in a minute. There are also twin maiden husks, who work with bell bearings and serve as merchants for the tarnished. Beyond those are even more paracausal entities that have taken up shop in the Round Table. The Finger Reader Crone and the Fingers themselves reside in the throne room, serving as envoys of the greater will and delivering those messages to the tarnished. But now that we understand generally what the Round Table is, let's talk about some abnormalities. As the player journeys throughout the game and further explores the Roundtable Hold, a few interesting events will happen. If the player ventures far enough into the Great Hall, they'll stumble upon an invader, Mad Tongue Alberich. Not only is this one of the only instances where you can fight in the Round Table, it's also one of the only ways to die here. There's another time as well. After receiving a piece of the Haligtree secret medallion, we'll be invaded again in the Roundtable Hold, but this time it's different. We enter with a strange golden vortex, the same kind as seen when summoned as a cooperator, and find it dark and rid of its occupants. And we're invaded by Insha, the servant of Gideon. But it's almost as if we're in an illusion of the Round Table, because after killing Insha, we're returned back to the standard Round Table. Another abnormality of the Round Table versus other places in Elden Ring is that it burns in conjunction with the Erd Tree. After first setting it alight and releasing the giant's flame of ruin, the flames begin to minimally spread across the Erd Tree. And oddly enough, at this point we really don't see a reaction from the occupants of the Round Table. In fact, they hardly notice. But once Destined Death is released and the flames grow to their full strength, The Roundtable Hold becomes consumed in fire, loses its color, and the inhabitants start to panic. Roderika becomes consumed in worry, Hugh starts to lose his memory, and the finger reader Crone actually dies. But before we can seek out an explanation for this, we have to turn our eyes elsewhere. Hidden away in the trenches of Leyndell is the subject of another piece of our mystery, and a very big topic for speculation. Here we can find a structure that's very out of place, decorated with the Nemean lion of Godfrey. It's a much more crude building, much less decorative than the ornate architecture of Leyndell, and therefore much older, as if the entire city was built around it. But once we enter through a side entrance doorway, we can find things are very familiar. Here is a carbon copy of the Roundtable Hold, or perhaps the original Roundtable Hold, because it's empty, void of life or inhabitants, yet perfectly reflective of our nexus, with the only difference being the throne room, which is probably the most interesting part of this roundtable. We can also find the corpse of Alberich, the invader that we discussed earlier. Where normally the fingers would be, we instead find a very large throne decorated with the symbol of the Erd Tree. And if the Roundtable was the gathering place of the Tarnished, then the throne is the perfect size for their leader. This throne more than likely belonged to Godfrey, and was where he gave his commands to his soldiers, the Tarnished. But even if we follow this reasonable conclusion, there are too many things that don't make sense. On the throne itself, we can find the coated sword, an item that describes the two fingers leading the Tarnished of the Roundtable Hold. But there's no evidence of the fingers being here. In fact, quite the opposite. But to begin to find some answers, we need to ask the major question: why are there two Roundtable Holds? If we take that the fortified manor is now abandoned and was where Godfrey led the Tarnished before becoming Elden Lord, then we can assume it was abandoned around the time the Tarnished were exiled, and Godfrey led the Great March across the sea. But we're now in a different time, a time when the Tarnished have been called back, and the guidance of grace has been returned to them. A time when a new lord is needed, and a new war is to be fought. And with the Tarnished being the prime candidate, they need their meeting place back. And so the coordinate where the guidance of grace meets is at this new round table. But if this isn't the same round table as in Leyndell, where is it? Since this new round table burns in conjunction with the Erd Tree is our key to understanding its location. And it's led some people to theorize that the Roundtable Hold may even be inside the Erd Tree. And to an extent, I think that's true, but let me explain. Throughout our journey as we take on the most powerful foes, we gain things called remembrances, and each of them has the tagline, hewn into the Erd Tree. Now this idea of being hewn into the Erd Tree is never explained. It's just a passing thought mentioned in the description of the remembrances that could potentially carry so much weight. But let's think about this for a minute. In our video covering the lore of the Erd Tree, we discussed how it was once called the Crucible of Life, and Sorceress Selin tells us that the amber of the Erd Tree contains the remnants of ancient life and houses its vitality. So the idea that memory in some capacity is stored in the Erd Tree is not far-fetched. There's also an event if you choose to do the Volcano Manor questline, where you invade an NPC called Vargrim the Raging Wolf, and his helm has a description that reads, "A helm worn by Vargrim the Raging Wolf, one of the first Tarnished to visit the Roundtable Hold." But the thing is, we never find Vargrim in the actual Roundtable Hold. Instead, he's located in the fortified manor. And this got me thinking about what Vare said, about needing an invitation to the Roundtable Hold. Many of the guests we find are downtrodden and lost, and we never see them get an invitation to the Roundtable. Instead, what I think the invitation is referring to, as well as the people that speak about Roundtable Hold outside of the active Roundtable itself, is the fortified manor. And so those non-tarnished probably don't even know the active one exists. Further down Roderika's questline, we can find Hugh praying to Queen Marika, begging for her mercy and explaining that he's tasked with forging a weapon to kill a god. But since he's imprisoned here and not in the fortified manor, it implies that this version of the Roundtable Hold is somewhere under the influence of Marika's power. There's also the case of Dung Eater, who's able to travel here in spirit, while his true body is locked away in a cell. The point here is that this fabled Roundtable of Champions was only ever the fortified manor, and it's since been lost to time, now replaced by a replica somewhere beyond. What we now have is a joint memory between the Tarnished, hewn into the Erd Tree, and kept alive by the power of Queen Marika and her extension of grace to the Tarnished. I think the best comparison we can make here is to the Hunter's Dream from Bloodborne, where it's a location able to be physically interacted with, but not actually existing in the world. It's a memory replica of the Hunter's Workshop, sustained by Gehrman and the Moon Presence. It even catches fire the same way the Roundtable does. The god sustaining the Roundtable is Queen Marika, and the memory is pulled conjointly between all the Tarnished, through the guidance of grace. It would explain why Melina is able to take us there, because as we discussed at length in the video about her lore, she is very much tied to Queen Marika, either being an extension of her herself or a memory of the Glowmide Queen, rebirthed through the Erd Tree. And so technically the Roundtable Hold doesn't actually exist. But that's just my theory on all of this. I'm curious to hear what you guys think. Did you come to the same conclusion, or do you think the Roundtable Hold is something else altogether? Either way though, if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to leave a like on it, and subscribe if you want to stay up to date on all things Elden Ring FromSoftware and Armored Core. Once again, thank you to Mobiuz for partnering with the channel for the month, and with all that, I will catch you in the next one.